Yeah, thank you so much, Jenna, for inviting us up here to come speak with y'all today about your benefits through the retirement systems of Alabama, better known, of course, as RSA for short. Again, I'm Kit Gallup. I'm the Director of Field Services at RSA, and I'm delighted to be here. I hate the weather, but at least to get more of you in here when it's bad weather like this so you can learn more about your retirement benefits. Today I'm going to speak to you about two benefits that we administer at the retirement systems of Alabama that apply to you as employees at Decatur Utilities. The first plan I'm going to talk to you about is known as the Employees Retirement System, ERS. ERS is a benefit that you have to participate in as a condition of your employment, and I know you're probably very aware that you have so much of your salary that's taken from your paycheck each pay period that's going towards your retirement benefit. That's ERS. Then I'm going to talk to you about our voluntary plan known as RSA-1. That is a deferred compensation plan that allows you to set aside a little bit more of your salary to save more for retirement, and also get that ancillary or extra benefit of lowering your tax liability right now. So I first want to get underway and make sure that everybody is staying on top of their retirement and getting the right information. You know, I know a lot of us talk with each other at work, and you might share some ideas of retirement, what you think the rules are for retirement. But we found a lot of our members throughout the state have relied on their coworkers for retirement advice, and it hasn't been such good advice many times. A lot of their hopes have been dashed because they thought that they could retire earlier, or they thought they could do something different with their retirement, borrow against it. Well, they've been told a lot of wrong information, so we want to make sure that you get the correct information, and we offer several opportunities for you to keep apprised of your retirement benefits. You can always call us or email us. I'll provide our contact information at the end of the presentation. That's one way of reaching out to us, but we also offer other avenues for you to keep apprised of your retirement benefits. We encourage that you all check out our website if you haven't been there before. It's a great website. It has a lot of information, and more importantly, we have the Member Online Services portal on our website that you can visit and log into that account of yours so that you can look at items that we once used to place in the mail to you. Your annual ERS statement used to be placed in the mail to you just before Thanksgiving each year. It was based off of the recently completed fiscal year that ended September 30th, but we no longer place that in the mail to you. We simply upload it to the Member Online Services portal on our website. So if you've not logged into your account, be sure to do so sometime soon, if not today, right? Because we want to make sure that you are keeping apprised of your years and months of service, your salary credit. Those are important factors which determine your retirement benefit and retirement eligibility. So make sure that you log into our Member Online Services portal and view your account information. Also, I met Jenna a couple of months ago over in Huntsville at our early to mid-career seminar. The Field Services Division at RSA offers opportunities for all of our members to come to a seminar to learn about their retirement benefits in more detail. The early to mid-career seminar is geared for those who are, middle of their career, early career, and then we have a retirement preparation seminar, which is a full-day seminar that includes Social Security as well. So we encourage that you come to one of our seminars in the near future, if it hasn't been already. If you're closing in on retirement eligibility, say if you're within 5 years of retirement eligibility, you can come to our full-day retirement preparation seminar. The schedule for 2023 will be sent to Jenna in the first week of February. We do teachers retirement in January, but ERS will release the schedule in February. So if you're interested in attending one of our seminars, you can fill out a paper registration form and place it in the mail, or you can log into that Member Online Services portal that I was just talking about, and you can schedule yourself for a seminar right there. It's very easy to do. And then last but not least, you all have these handbooks here, okay? You might want to keep them in your office, at home, what have you, put it in a safe place. A pretty dry read, both of these handbooks. If you're having difficulty sleeping like I did last night because there were a bunch of soccer players screaming in the hotel room, I don't know where they're from, but they were screaming. If I had this, maybe it would have put me to sleep a little bit faster because it's a pretty dry read, okay? But yeah, a lot of information in these handbooks, and of course our contact information is there as well. So as I said earlier, I'm going to talk to you first about our ERS benefit, the Employees Retirement System. I want to make sure everybody understands that our retirement plan, ERS, is a defined benefit retirement. When you retire and start drawing your benefit from us, you draw it for the rest of your life. Doesn't matter how long you live, you draw it for the rest of your life. I have a neighbor of mine. She just died back in August. I don't mean to smile, but she was 99 and she drove me crazy. But she had been drawing her retirement benefit from us for 39 years. It's real, folks. This is a lifetime benefit. So when you retire, you draw that benefit for life. So that's why it's called a defined benefit retirement. Benefit is defined. You know what you're going to receive on that last business day every month for the rest of your retirement. Okay? Now, participation, as you're fully aware, is mandatory. It's a condition of your employment at Decatur Utilities. And you're either going to be classified as a Tier 1 member or a Tier 2 member, and more on that in just a little bit. But regardless of tier status, all of us vest in our retirement plan with 10 years of service credit. 10 years is the benchmark we should all be striving for if we're just getting started, because once we have 10 years locked in, we've locked in our lifetime benefit that we can begin drawing later in life. You know, I came to work for the state of Alabama at 22, so by the age of 32, I was already vested. So that means that when I turn 60, I can begin drawing my benefit. If I just decided to leave state employment after 10 years, I got vested, I'm eligible for that lifetime benefit upon reaching age 60. So keep in mind, vesting is an important benchmark that we should all strive to meet. Because if you're not vested, you don't have a defined benefit in retirement. You need to become vested first. Now, as I mentioned, this is a lifetime monthly benefit, but the way we're going to calculate it is not on how much you put into the plan, but it's going to be based off of a formula. And that formula is going to involve two variables. First and foremost, your salary. Second, your years and months of service credit. And we're going to talk about the formula in a little bit. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have Tier 1 and Tier 2. Now, back in 2012, when the legislature decided to adopt Tier 2 for all future hires effective January 1st of 2013, that put a lot of concern with many of our local entities. When I say local entities, I'm talking also Decatur Utilities. A lot of our local employers who participate in the Employees Retirement System, ERS, were concerned that Tier 2 was not going to be as generous and was going to affect not only recruitment of new employees, but also retention of those new employees. So Tier 2, it was not as generous as Tier 1. And consequently, Decatur Utilities decided back in 2020 to offer Tier 1 benefits to Tier 2 employees, and that's a result of this act that the legislature finally agreed to pass back in 2019. So if you're a Tier 2 employee, you're still Tier 2, but now you have Tier 1 benefits with Decatur Utilities, which means you stay here at Decatur Utilities and retire as a Tier 2 member, you're going to have Tier 1 benefits, Tier 1 retirement formula, and Tier 1 retirement eligibility, which is far better than Tier 2. Okay? So that's important to remember. Now, those Tier 2 employees, their contribution rates went from 6% to 7.5% of their salary. Keep in mind, I'd gladly pay 7.5% of my salary for Tier 1 benefits. I do that myself because we at the state of Alabama pay in 7.5% for our Tier 1 benefits. So it's a good thing because we all get a lifetime benefit and everybody here is going to have their benefit calculated the same way. So membership. We have two tiers. What defines us by our tiers, okay? What determines our tier status? Well, our tier status is based on when we first made contributions to the retirement systems of Alabama as a result of working for one of our member employers, whether that be Decatur Utilities, the Morgan County Commission, the state of Alabama, the city of Decatur. They're all members of the Employees Retirement System. So if you were contributing with one of our member employers before January 1st of 2013, you're classified as a Tier 1 member, okay? Tier 1 members and those who have Tier 1 benefits can retire at 25 years of service at any age or at age 60 with as little as 10 years of service credit, okay? So again, remember that 10 years gets us vested. So we all want to strive to becoming vested, get those 10 years in. But say if we start younger in life, I worked for the state of Alabama at 22. I could retire at 47 with 25 years of service credit. And I look at a lot of faces here today. Many of you young guys could retire at a very young age, okay? Because you can get your 25 in and retire and draw those benefits for the rest of your life. Tier 2 was created back in 2012, but it didn't go into effect until 2013. When Tier 2 was created in 2012, the legislature decided that they would only allow retirement eligibility at age 62 with at least 10 years of service credit. You heard that right. You had to be 62 with at least 10 years as a Tier 2 member to retire and draw your benefits. That's far different than 25 years at any age, right? Well, the legislature made these changes, and then after several years, Act 2019 came around and allowed local governments such as Decatur Utility to offer Tier 1 benefits to their Tier 2 employees. So the good thing is that if you work at Decatur Utilities, you don't have to worry about Tier 2 because everybody here has Tier 1 benefits and Tier 1 retirement eligibility. Just know, Tier 2 members, if you leave Decatur Utilities and say you want to go work for the Decatur City School System under the teacher's retirement system, you would revert back to Tier 2 benefit structure and Tier 2 retirement eligibility. So keep that in mind. Not all employers were given the ability to offer Tier 1 benefits to their Tier 2 employees. So just be cognizant of that. Okay? And folks, feel free to ask questions throughout. I'm fine with answering questions in my presentation. Now, when it comes to service credit, this is important because not only does it go toward determining what our retirement benefit is going to be, but service credit dictates when we reach retirement eligibility. The more service credit we have when we retire, the larger our benefit's going to be under the retirement systems of Alabama. We all earn membership service. While we work, we're earning a salary. Retirement contributions are being remitted on our behalf to the retirement systems of Alabama, and we're earning membership service. So all of us are in that. But there may be some opportunities for some of us in the audience today to purchase service credit. Now, purchasable service credit, of course, is going to cost you money, and sometimes it's a pretty significant amount of money to purchase service credit. And you can't just purchase credit out of thin air. It's got to be represented for previous types of employment or leaves of absence. But I will say this, withdrawn service happens to be the most popular service to purchase. It's the most commonly purchased because it's not that inexpensive. It can be kind of affordable. It may be well worth your money purchasing a withdrawn account that you have with the retirement systems of Alabama. Keep in mind that if you have any withdrawn accounts, you have to be re-employed 2 years before you can buy back those accounts. So say if you had worked for the city of Decatur for a few years and then left that job and then withdrew your account from the retirement systems of Alabama. You got your money out, you forfeited all those years and months of service credit tied to that account. Upon coming to work here at Decatur Utilities, after 2 years, you can get the ability to buy that time back from your previous employment. It's going to be more expensive than what you got when you pulled the money out, but the earlier you buy that time, the cheaper it's going to be. All right, so withdrawn service is one of the most popular types of services that our members purchase. Now, I can't purchase withdrawn service myself because I don't have a withdrawn account. It's only for previous types of employment with or leaves of absence with purchasable service allows. Now, military service. There are 2 different types of military service that we allow our members to purchase. You served in our nation's military. You can purchase up to 4 years of active duty service to add to your account in the employee's retirement system. The ideal time to purchase that service, that military service, is in our first year that we're making contributions to the retirement systems of Alabama. If you're not scheduled to receive a retirement benefit from that military service or currently drawing a retirement benefit from that military service, you can purchase up to 4 years. Ideal time is in our first year of employment to make that purchase. The next opportunity won't be until we become vested with 10 years of membership service, and at that point it gets more expensive because it's going to be priced actuarially. Okay? So whenever you see that in the member handbook that something is priced actuarially, just replace that for very expensive. Okay? It's not going to be a cheap endeavor. Now, hopefully we don't come across this next type of military service purchase anytime soon. But back at the beginning of the War on Terror, the state legislature passed what's known as the Noble Eagle Service Act. Okay? And what that allows is for our members, such as y'all, if you ever get called up to serve on active duty and have to take a leave of absence to serve our country, upon returning from that military activation, you can purchase the time that you were away on leave of absence from Decatur Utilities. And the cost is simply what you would have been paying in that portion of your salary had you not been called up to active duty. Okay? That is a very affordable purchase, and it's affordable because the legislature wanted to make sure that our members who get called up to serve our country weren't going to get penalized by losing service credit. Now, you have a deadline to purchase that Noble Legal Service Act. It's no more than 3 years, 3 times the length of your tour of duty with a cap of 5 years. Okay, so make sure that if you ever get called up to active duty upon returning, you give us a call and we'll go ahead and ask for that DD 214 of yours so we can go run a cost letter for you for that military activation when you were serving our country and on leave of absence. We pay your utilities. Okay? Now, out-of-state public service, that's another type of service, but we tend to not find many of our members take advantage of this because it's really costly. If we have members who say work for the state of Tennessee or for a pension plan up in Mississippi, what have you, and you want to bring those years into Alabama, you can after you have 10 years of membership service here, after you're vested. You can purchase up to 10 years of out-of-state public service, but it gets very, very costly because that service credit we're adding that we didn't get any money for previously, so we're going to make you pay a pretty penny to buy that out-of-state public service. But these types of purchasable services, not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of other types of services that you may find in the member handbook that may pique your interest. We do allow maternity leave of absence without pay to be purchased. That's another type of service credit, but the deadline on that is shortly after you return from maternity leave, going back to work, and get to purchase that time. But there's some other types of services out there, but these are going to be the most commonly purchased of them all. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're all paying into this plan, a portion of our salary. If you're Tier 2, you're paying in 7.5% to get those Tier 1 benefits, right? So you're paying in a portion of your salary. Now, the thing to remember is that if you pass away before you actually retire, there is going to be a monetary death benefit that's paid to your beneficiary on file. All the more reason to keep your beneficiary current, because we are notorious for making ex-spouses happy every year. And they're happy for many reasons, but they're really happy with us. Well, they're really happy with their ex, because that ex forgot to change his beneficiary to his new wife and left his ex-wife as the beneficiary. By law, that's who we have to pay. So always be sure to keep your beneficiary current. Wherever we go, we keep those forms with us, and I'm a notary public, and I can notarize it and take it back to Montgomery. So make sure you keep your beneficiary current. But now, this year, the legislature decided to enhance the pre-retirement death benefit. So there's been an enhancement to this benefit. So those of you who are eligible to retire right now and have your spouse listed as your beneficiary, that spouse can now choose the 100% survivor benefit, which would be the same benefit you would have been drawing had you been retired. And your spouse could draw that for the rest of her life. Okay, so that's an opportunity for our members who are eligible to retire right now. If you're not eligible to retire, I've got 21 years in, I'm not eligible to retire. But if I pass away, my beneficiary, my wife, is going to get a lump sum payment that would include all of the money that I put into my account over the course of my 21 years that I've worked. That means all of that money I put in and all the interest that money has earned. That would be paid to my wife, my beneficiary. The second part of that is going to be a year of my salary. She'll get a year of my salary based on that most recently completed fiscal year that ended September 30th. She'll get a year of my salary, and that's a tax-free benefit to boot. So understand that we've got a great pre-retirement death benefit. All the reason why you want to be sure that you keep your beneficiary current throughout your career. You have a change in life, you marry somebody else, or you want to make sure you go ahead and keep that beneficiary current. Now, if you're eligible to retire, I mentioned earlier, if you're eligible to retire and your wife or your spouse is your beneficiary, I should say, then your spousal beneficiary could get the 100% survivor benefit as one of the choices. The other choice would be getting the 50% survivor benefit. That's not going to be for spouses. They get the 100%. 50% would go to a non-spousal beneficiary as one of the choices. Okay? Yes, sir.
So just to make sure I got it correct, if we're not eligible to retire, we're still active, you would have the principal plus the interest, plus 100% of 1 year's salary.
The year of salary is tax-free.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
If you're not eligible to retire, your entire account balance is paid to your beneficiary, as well as a year of your salary.
What about the principal and the,
All of that,
all of
principal,
the tax
interest,
free, everything?
everything in your account balance is paid to your beneficiary. All the money that you put in, that's not tax-free.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why we'll see some of our members maybe roll that over to their personal IRA, or if they have another retirement account, they'll accept it, they usually roll it there. Okay, good question. Now, hopefully this doesn't come to pass, but I want to be sure we all understand that there is an RSA disability for our members. This isn't Social Security disability. Boy, that's a whole different ball of wax. Our disability is RSA disability. And all it requires of you is that first and foremost, when you make application for a disability retirement, you must be vested. You must have 10 years of service credit in order to make application for a disability retirement. Our disability retirement requires that you are no longer able to perform your current job duties due to your disability. All right? Our medical board is going to review that disability application along with the support documentation from your physician or physicians. They're going to make a determination whether to approve or not approve your disability retirement. They meet on the first Tuesday of every month, so they're looking at disability retirement applications often, a group of doctors. Okay? Now, before you make application for a disability retirement, just be sure we're going to ask that you be currently employed or on official leave of absence. You cannot quit your job at Decatur Utilities and apply for a disability retirement. You have to be in service or on official leave of absence and be a vested member. Okay? That's how you get your disability retirement from us. Now, we're going to calculate those disability retirement benefits using the same formula that we use for a service retirement. But as I mentioned earlier, service credit plays a role in our retirement formula. The more service credit we have, the larger our benefit's going to be. If you go out on a disability retirement with 10 or 12 years of service credit, as opposed to going out on a service retirement with 25, 30 years, well, of course, the disability retirement's going to be far less. So don't see disability as like hitting the jackpot by any means. Because if you don't have a lot of years and months of service credit, you're not looking at a very large disability retirement benefit. Okay? But it does exist for our members who can no longer perform their current job duties. When it comes time to apply for retirement, it is a two-part process. Part one is your retirement application. Part two is going to be which monthly benefit that you'd like to receive for the rest of your life. You'll be presented with 4 choices. Part one must be turned into us 30 to 90 days before your date of retirement. Everyone retires on the first day of a given month, even if it happens to be a holiday like New Year's Day. Everybody retires on January 1st, February 1st, March 1st. It's always going to be the first day of the month. So if you turn in your application for retirement today, January 1's not in the cards for you because we're already within 30 days of January 1. So the earliest possible date would be February 1. Okay? So just remember, we need to have that application turned into us 30 to 90 days before your retirement date. There's a direct deposit authorization on there as well because we're going to directly deposit your monthly benefit to your savings or checking account at your financial institution. Okay? So it's all direct deposit. Now, part two is what we, in response to receiving part one from you, we send you part two. Part two is going to involve choosing one of the 4 monthly benefit payments. We're going to talk about those monthly benefit payments in just a little bit. But part two must be turned in before your retirement date. Remember, you always retire on the first day of a month. So be sure to turn in part two before your retirement date. Otherwise, we will make the choice for you by law. It will be the maximum monthly benefit. Okay? So that's very important, part two. You turn in part one a little bit late, oh well, your retirement date's kicked back another month. You turn in Part 2 after your retirement date, you're getting the maximum, and that's irrevocable. You cannot change it. So be very conscientious about turning in Part 2. I had a situation just recently of a member, she failed to turn in Part 2. She was what we refer to as auto-maxed. She was given the maximum automatically because that's the law. She never turned in Part 2. The maximum leaves very little behind for a beneficiary, as you'll see in just a second. She died 2 weeks after she retired. Her husband is all he's getting is a one-time prorated monthly payment covering the number of days she lived in her last month. That's it. So just be aware, Part 2, if you don't turn it in, you're going to get the maximum, and that's irrevocable. And this is how we get to the maximum. This is the formula that I've alluded to a lot already this morning. 2 variables you see in the formula there. Average final salary, years and months of service credit. The higher our average final salary is, the larger our benefit will be. The more years and months of service credit we have, the larger our benefit will be. So it behooves us to work longer and try to earn more, because that's what's going to dictate what our retirement benefit's going to be. Average final salary. The highest 3 years of salary added the most recent 10 years of service. So if you're in year 5 right now and you're only 25 years old, it doesn't really matter what you're making right now. Your focus should be on service credit and getting vested. But once you get yourself within 10 years of retirement eligibility, you should start thinking about this average final salary and what you can do to beef up your salary so that your retirement benefit's going to be even larger. Now, average final salary, I said, is the 3 highest years of salary out of the most recent 10 years of service. And when we say years, we go by fiscal years, so it's October 1 through September 30th. So what you see on your statement from us each year probably will not match up with your W-2, which is based on a calendar year. Another thing, because I'm speaking to utilities here today, I imagine many of you work overtime. Okay? If you work overtime, some of the salary from that overtime work can be used towards your average final salary. However, back when the legislature made a lot of changes about 10 years ago, they capped on how much you can contribute on overtime compensation as far as retirement contributions are concerned. You're only allowed to contribute on 120% of your base salary. So if your base salary is 50 grand a year, you can contribute on up to 60 grand a year if you earn that in overtime. But anything more than that, you would still get paid for. You wouldn't have retirement contribution remittances coming out of that extra salary. So you can contribute on 120% of your base salary. Be aware of that. Okay? Because I imagine a lot of you get some overtime. Now, the benefit factor, it's 2 1/80%. So if you want to round down for making this a lot easier, you can do so. Round down to 2%. It's not going to be much difference. So you have 2 1/80 as your benefit factor. Divide by 12 months of the year, gets us our maximum monthly benefit amount. So you can kind of think of this really easily. Say if you did 25 years. 25 times 2% is 50%. You retire at 25 years, you're looking at withdrawing 50% of your average final salary for the rest of your life. If you work 30 years, you're looking at 60%, so on and so forth. So remember, average final salary, years and months of service. That's what is going to dictate what our retirement benefit's going to be. The benefit factor, that's going to stay the same. That does not change. Okay. So let's take a look at some of these choices that we're going to be presented with. I showed you the maximum earlier, just a second ago. And this is a choice that you make at retirement. No reason to be preoccupied with this choice at this time unless you're planning on retiring soon. Maximum is the most. But notice there's nothing in parentheses beside it. What's in parentheses behind the other 3 options there are what's left behind for the beneficiary. With the maximum, you get the most, but when you die, the only thing your beneficiary gets is a one-time prorated monthly benefit payment covering the number of days you lived in your last month of life. So say if my monthly benefit under the maximum is $2,000 and I choose the maximum and I die on June 15th, there's only 30 days in June, my beneficiary would get just half of my monthly payment because I only lived half of my last month of life. So she'd get $1,000 and that would be it. Now, my neighbor who just died at 99, she took the maximum. I'd say she made the right decision. She drew the maximum for 39 years. But I've also seen, just like I told you a moment ago, that member who was auto-maxed because she didn't turn in Part 2. She died 2 weeks into retirement. Her husband only got a one-time payment covering half the month she lived. That's it. So be very aware that the maximum comes with that fear of not leaving a lot behind for your beneficiary. But you know what? If you don't want to leave anything behind for your beneficiary, you just want to take the maximum, hey, that's your choice. All of these choices are good because they leave us as retirees with lifetime benefits, right? The choice we make is going to tell RSA what we'd like to leave behind for our beneficiary. If we choose the maximum, we're not planning on leaving much behind for our beneficiary. Now, option 1, 2, and 3 are going to be reduced amounts from the maximum. Option 1 is going to be just a slight reduction from the maximum, sometimes $25, $30 less. But the nice thing about the option 1 choice is that with option 1, your account balance that you built up comes into play. That account balance that you built up over the course of your career, all the money that you put in, all the interest that is earned, that's your account balance. That starts coming into play with option 1. We're going to pull a little bit out of that account balance each month to go toward paying you your retirement benefit. After that account balance is depleted, you still draw the same benefit that you'd always been drawing, but now all of that money is originating from RSA. None of it's coming from your account balance. But say if you chose option 1 and died 2 years into retirement, there would still be a lot of money left in that account balance. And that amount is then paid to your beneficiary as a one-time lump sum payment. Now, after the account balance is depleted, which usually takes about 10 to 12 years into retirement, you'll still get your benefit for the rest of your life. Same thing that you've always been getting, but your beneficiary would only get a prorated payment after you die because there's no more account balance to pay that beneficiary. It's all been paid back to you as part of your retirement benefit. Okay, so that's option 1. Options 2 and 3, they function much differently than the maximum in option 1. What really sets them apart is with options 2 and 3, not only are you getting a lifetime benefit, but when you die, your one and only one beneficiary will continue to draw benefit for the rest of his or her life. The 100% survivor benefit, option 2. That's where the retiree takes a pretty noticeable reduction from the maximum, but upon his passing, his beneficiary, let's say it's his wife, would get that same exact check for the rest of her life until she dies. So we find option 2 to be very popular with our members who are married to someone who doesn't have a retirement of her own. This provides that continuity of income to that household even after the retiree has passed away. Option 3, one and only one beneficiary. With option 3, you don't take as large of a reduction from the maximum as you did with option 2. But with option 3, your beneficiary is only going to get half of what you drew once you pass away. Okay? Yes, sir.
You say one and only, is that one and only at a time, or one if they die, then you have no more beneficiary?
That's a good question. You take options 2 or 3 at retirement, you can only have one beneficiary on file at that time. If that beneficiary predeceases you, or you divorce that beneficiary, those are the only 2 instances where you can name a replacement beneficiary. But understand, by designating a replacement beneficiary with options 2 or 3, we're going to have to recalculate your benefit, okay, to factor in the age of the new replacement beneficiary. Because when it comes to options 2 and 3, because you're leaving a lifetime benefit to a beneficiary, we're going to have to find out first and foremost, how old is your beneficiary? Because if your beneficiary is 30 years younger than you are, we're going to substantially reduce your monthly benefit because we have to factor in paying that monthly benefit after you die to someone for perhaps decades after you die. So the younger your beneficiary is with options 2 or 3, the bigger the reduction you're going to see. But you can only have one beneficiary at a time with options 2 or 3. Now the maximum in option 1, you can have as many beneficiaries as you'd like, and you can change them as often as you'd like. But options 2 and 3, only one, and you can only change in death or divorce.
That was my question.
That's it. Only in death and divorce can you change your beneficiary. You can't divorce. But guys, let me just say this. Forewarn everybody, I've seen it happen. You can't divorce a fiance. We've seen that happen. You got a question, sir?
Yeah, can you name a trust as a beneficiary for just your account balance?
If you take option 1 or the maximum, you can name anybody or anything as your beneficiary. So it could be a trust, it could be a charity, it could be a church. I've seen animal shelters listed as a beneficiary under option 1 or maximum. Keep in mind, it's just a one-time payment and it's done. With options 2 or 3, it has to be a person as your beneficiary that has a date of birth. Because we need to find out how old your beneficiary is as opposed to you to determine how much of a reduction you will incur by choosing option 2 or 3 with that beneficiary on file.
If you retired first and then got married maybe 2 years later, can you change that from the max benefit to maybe option 1?
Good question. You cannot change your retirement option. Once you retire, you make that choice then, and it's set in stone. That's your retirement benefit for life. So if you retire and take the maximum, and then a couple years later decide to get married, and you can name your new wife as your beneficiary for the maximum, because you can change it any time, but you can't change your retirement option. Okay? You can't change your retirement option. Once you make it, it's pretty much set in stone. There is one way to change your retirement option after you've retired. It involves coming out of retirement, going back to work, working 2 years, and then buying those 2 years because you won't be contributing for those first 2 years you come back, buying those 2 years and then re-retiring. Okay? But we don't find many of our members want to go through that rigmarole just to change their retirement benefits. Okay? Some do, but most don't. Good questions, folks. So just remember, with all 4 of these choices, you, the retiree, get a lifetime benefit. Now, let's look at this example. Gentleman 63, let's say his beneficiary is his wife, she's 59. He has 28 years and 7 months, and his average final salary is $45,000. So following the formula, and again, folks, look at those figures under Tier 2. Don't worry about it. Because everybody here has Tier 1 benefits and Tier 1 retirement formula. Okay? The maximum in this case would be $21.57. He'd get that every month until he dies. And then when he dies, his wife, his beneficiary, would just get a prorated payment covering the number of days he lived in this last month. Now, option 1, you see it's slightly less than the maximum. Right? With option 1, the member draws $21.32, and then when he passes away, whatever's remaining in that account balance is paid to the beneficiary as a lump sum. Remember, we're pulling from that account balance to pay him his $21.32. Options 2 and 3, you notice they're pretty reduced. Option 2, $18.43. With $18.43, he's going to get this every month for the rest of his life, and when he dies, his wife, his beneficiary, is going to get $18.43 for the rest of her life. Option 3, he's going to get $19.87, but when he dies, his wife is only going to get half of that $19.87. Okay, that's the 50% survivor option. So keep in mind, all of these are good because they provide us retirees lifetime benefits, but the choice we make is going to tell RSA what you want to leave behind. Now, the latest feature in our retirement plan, which may be of interest to some of you here today, is called the Partial Lump Sum Option Plan. We refer to it as PLOP. It's a silly name. It's been so silly that we call it a flop. Back in 2019, the legislature, after several years of hearing from constituents about trying to bring DROP back, this is no DROP, let me forewarn y'all on this. This is PLOP. DROP didn't come back, and it probably won't ever come back. We have PLOP now, which allows our retirees to take a partial lump sum payment at the start of retirement in exchange for accepting a permanently reduced monthly benefit for the rest of their lives. You can take a PLOP payment at retirement now and get up to anywhere between 1 to 24 months of what your maximum monthly benefit has been determined. It's going to be rounded into thousands of dollars, and then it's going to be subject to a 20% federal withholding, that PLOP payment. Keep in mind that if you take a PLOP payment, it will permanently reduce your monthly benefit, permanent as in the rest of your life. You can't do a PLOP on a disability retirement either, unless you were already eligible for service retirement. So in this example, we have our original benefits. Remember, we just saw these a second ago. The member wanted to take option 2 here. He'd get $18.43 every month for the rest of his life. And when he dies, his wife would get the $18.43, right? But say he wanted to take PLOP. He wanted to get a 1-month PLOP payment, because that's the minimum PLOP payment. We're going to take that maximum of $21.57, and we're going to round up to the nearest $1,000. So it would be a $3,000 PLOP payment. But that's going to reduce his option 2 benefit from $18.43 down to $18.22. Permanent reduction. That's the minimum PLOP. The maximum PLOP is 24 months of your maximum benefit. So if you take $21.57, multiply it by 24 here, this gentleman is going to get a $51,000 lump sum payment. It's going to be slightly more than 51 grand, but we're going to round down to the nearest thousand on the top end. So he gets 51 grand. It's going to be subject to a 20% federal withholding. And that option 2 benefit is going to go from $18.43 down to $14.86. Pretty noticeable reduction, right? And it's a permanent reduction. So we've had a lot of members express interest in PLOP, only to find out after they run the numbers that they're not so interested any longer. Because remember, this is a permanent reduction. And all of us know that the big I word this year has been inflation. And the last time our retirees have gotten a cost of living adjustment that was granted by the legislature and will have to be approved by your governing body here, the board, the last time was in 2006. So don't expect any cost of living adjustments in retirement on a common basis. You could expect a one-time bonus. Those are common. One-time bonus payment, but don't expect a cost of living adjustment in retirement. So I can tell you right now, that's a pretty steep reduction from $18.43 down to $14.86. If you took 2 guys, everything being the same salary, same years of service, and both retire at the same time, everything the same. One chooses PLOP, the other chose not to do PLOP. Well, initially, the one who chose to take the PLOP payment will have garnered more money from the retirement systems of Alabama, at least initially. But after about 10 years, their paths are going to cross, and the one who chose not to take the PLOP will have gotten more money out of RSA from that point forward because they didn't get that PLOP payment, so they're getting a larger monthly benefit. Okay? So we've seen some of our members who maybe look at PLOP, but a lot of them are just not that interested in it. It's been really much a flop. So I have to talk to you about it. Last but not least, on ERS, if you want to go to work after you've retired from Decatur Utilities, you can go to work where anyone's willing to hire you. Okay? You can go work wherever you like. The only time that we're going to be concerned about your future employment endeavors is if it's with one of our member employers. We have well over 800 local member employers. Decatur Utilities is just one. We have all the state agencies. We have all the education, boards of education, Decatur City Schools, Morgan County Public Schools, all these school systems. They're all part of our plan. So if you go to work for a member employer, you can still draw your retirement benefit so long as you meet these 2 criteria. First, you are employed on a part-time basis with that member employer of ours. And second, you're going to not earn any more than the limit for the year. In 2023, that earnings limit is going from $34,000 up to $37,000 for 2023. Okay? Now, if you want to work for Walmart, or you want to go work for Sparks, or what have you, you can earn as much as you want. They're not members of the retirement systems of Alabama. But if you want to work part-time for one of our member employers, you can, but you would be limited to part-time and $37,000 for the year. Okay. So any questions on post-retirement employment? I hope nobody gets to that point. I hope we all enjoy our retirement, because that's what I'm going to talk to you about briefly next, is our deferred compensation plan known as RSA-1. I'm a big proponent of RSA-1 because yours truly has been able to amass a very sizable nest egg for my retirement over the past 20 years that I've been setting aside some money through payroll deduction to save more for retirement. RSA-1's been great to me. There have been some bad years and there have been some good years. Got to take the bad with the good, right? This is what's referred to as a 457B deferred compensation plan. Those are plans that you typically find in the public sector. They're the public sector's version basically of a 401k, except there's no matching. It's simply what you put aside from payroll each pay period. So it's a terrific, easy plan to participate in, and it's helping you replace your pre-retirement salary. Because a lot of financial advisors recommend that you try to strive to replace 85% of your pre-retirement salary. Well, I'll say this, your ERS benefit, if you just run the formula, will probably be replacing the lion's share of your pre-retirement salary, right? But it probably won't get you to that sweet spot of reaching 85%. Social Security, that too, is going to be available to us upon reaching age 62. That's the earliest we can start drawing Social Security. But do keep in mind that Social Security has a lot of headwinds coming in it right now. Social Security, by the year 2035, if Congress doesn't make some changes to the Social Security benefit, Social Security is only going to be able to pay out 80% of scheduled benefits come year 2035. When I first started saying that, when I started at RSA well over 10 years ago, it felt like it was an eternity. It's going to be 2023 next year. 2035 is not that far off. So hopefully Congress will address the solvency issues with Social Security. But right now we've got about, for every retiree drawing Social Security, we only have about 2 workers. 50 years ago it was 4 workers to every retiree drawing Social Security. So that's putting a pinch on Social Security, so you can expect some reforms will probably transpire with Social Security, young folks. Just be aware, it's important to have additional savings so that you can reach that sweet spot of being able to replace 85% of your pre-retirement salary. Personal savings plan, like RSA-1. Easy way to save. Now, with the plan, RSA-1 is strictly voluntary. You decide how much you want to set aside from your salary each pay period. There are no minimums. Okay, you can do $20 a paycheck, that's perfectly fine. When you defer the salary into RSA-1, you're going to choose how to have it invested so that you can have it grow. Another great feature of the deferred comp plan like RSA-1 is not only are you saving for retirement by setting aside some of your salary, you're helping to lower your taxable income because you're deferring your salary, a portion of it, you're lowering what's considered taxable income and thereby lowering your tax liability for the year. And not only that, your earnings that you make are going to be tax deferred as well. So how much will you make in RSA-1? Well, that's going to depend on how you have it invested and, of course, how our investment performance is for these 3 investment funds. We only have 3 funds. We make this simple for our members, right? This isn't going to be a plan that provides you dozens of investment funds for you to select among. There are only 3. We have the fixed income fund, the equity fund, and the short-term investment fund. All 3 of these funds have some element of risk or volatility, but I will caution our members that the equity fund is going to be the most risky, but the most rewarding at times, and then also the short-term investment fund is going to be the least risky, but least rewarding. The fixed income fund is the middle of the road fund. We've had it since we first started RSA-1 back in 1986. We used to refer to it as the bond fund because it's invested in fixed income investments such as corporate and governmental bonds. Hence the name fixed income fund. It doesn't yield a fixed rate of return, and that was certainly evidenced this year. Let me tell you, the fixed income fund had a pretty lousy year this year. I'll be honest with you. Had a loss of over 13%, the biggest loss we've had since the inception of RSA 1 on that fixed income fund. Bad loss this year. But last year, it didn't fare much better. It had a little bit of a positive. But 2 years ago, it had over a 7% return. 3 years ago, that fixed income fund had over a 9% return. So keep in mind that there's going to be ups and downs, but the fixed income fund generally gets in the range of about 3 to 5% on average. There are going to be better years, yeah, and there are going to be worse years like this year. Yeah, of course, there will be. The equity fund is an S&P 500 index fund. So if you're tracking the S&P 500 on the evening news, or you look at your stocks app on your iPhone, you can see the direction of the S&P 500. That's the direction that you're going to see your index fund with RSA 1 go. Okay, it's going to be tied to the S&P 500, so it's going to track it very closely. The equity fund last year had over a 30% return for the year. Best year ever. This year, that just ended on September 30th, a fiscal year, it had a loss of about 15%. 2 years ago, it was in the high teens, the rate of return. I can tell you, ever since we emerged from the Great Recession back in 2010, the equity fund had been on a roll, folks. It was doing well. I remember firsthand back in 2008 and 2009 when I saw those huge losses in my RSA 1 account. My dad at that time said, just go ahead and continue putting money in, don't look at it, it'll turn around. Boy, did it ever. By 2012, it had a 29.8% return. The following 2 years, it had high teens, 19, 18% rates of return. Going forward, it did really well up until this year. So it's not for the faint of heart. The equity fund does go up and down quite a bit, okay? But if you're on the younger side, you have more time ahead of yourself to recoup these losses that you're probably going to incur. But you have more time ahead of you, let that money grow. You don't want to have it in something, say, that short-term investment fund, because that's not making much money. It's never had a loss, but when you're only making about 1, maybe 2% a year with a short-term investment fund, that's not going to keep you above the pace of inflation. If inflation's at 8% this year, well, we want to make sure that our money's earning enough to say, so when we retire, our money's going to have the same, if not more, purchasing power at that time. Okay? So really think you have these 3 funds. It's not that difficult to gauge where you want to put your money when you only have 3 choices. Best part of RSA 1 is that you won't pay any fees to participate in this plan. This plan is offered to all of our members across the state of Alabama, so you too can participate if you're not already doing so. And you won't pay anybody a fee to have an account. I don't make a commission if someone signs up for RSA 1. I'm a state employee. I get a salary, okay? I would love for all of you to join RSA 1 because with my experience, it's been great for me. And I haven't had to pay anybody to manage this account at all, okay?
Can you change your option on how to invest it at any time?
Yes, you can change your investment options every 90 days. So you have to keep it in effect for 90 days before you can change it again. I recently changed mine, moved a little bit more back into stock. Hopefully things are going to get a little bit better, but I have to keep that in effect for 90 days, and then I can change it up again 90 days later. Okay? So you can change, you can split among the 3. You don't have to have all going into one particular fund. So if you want to have like 50% go into the equity and 50% into the fixed income, you can do that. Change every 90 days.
So do you think you will ever shorten that investment period time?
Interesting that you bring that up because I do believe that should happen in the not too distant future. RSA 1 is undergoing a big IT update for its system, and that's one of the discussions that's being brought up, is to shorten the period of time before you can change how you have your account invested again, okay, differently. I've heard 60 days, I've heard 30 days, but remember when I first started doing this back in 2011, 2012, it was once a year you could make a change, and it had to be in December. That was a hard one for people to change. So nowadays, you can change it every 90, but we'll probably allow you to increase that more often.
Go ahead and do it for 30, that'd be great.
You don't want to be jumping around all the time, chasing the latest craze, right? So how much can you put in this plan? Well, there's no minimum. 25 bucks a paycheck, that's perfectly fine. Remember though, when you defer salary, you're also lowering your taxable income. So those of you who are in the tail end of your career, you might think this is all too late to be saving money for retirement. It's not, because not only are you saving for retirement, you're lowering your taxable income. And if you're later in your career, you're probably not getting all those nice tax credits and deductions you once had when you were raising kids and putting them through school. So this could be a great way for our well-seasoned employees here to save more for retirement and defer some salary, okay? Defer the taxes too. Now the maximums this year coming forward. If you're under 50, the most you can defer into a 457 plan such as RSA 1 is $22,500. 50 or over, it's going to 30 grand. It's a lot of money. And then we also offer what's known as a special catch-up provision. So for our members who are within 3 years of retirement eligibility, if you weren't able to defer the maximum throughout your career, you can catch up in the tail end of your career by deferring up to 45 grand each year for up to 3 consecutive years. It's a lot of money. I don't find a lot of our members taking advantage of this catch-up provision. But those of us who get paid a pretty sizable payout for unused leave, I don't know what the payout situation is with leave here, but if you do get a sizable payout, you can defer that into RSA 1. Okay? So when you retire, are they eligible for payment of unused leave? PTO. Okay? You can put, if you get paid for any unused leave, you can put that into RSA 1 so you can avoid getting hit so heavily on those taxes, on that payout for PTO.
So is that basically, can you still not exceed the maximum on that for the PTO payout at the end of the year?
So if you get a payout for PTO and it's going to be more than these figures, then no. I mean, okay, that's the maximum for the year. Now, what I have seen people do is they'll retire January 1st, and that payout for unused leave comes in the following calendar year, so it resets the limit. So we see a lot of our ERS members who get paid for unused leave tend to retire January 1st so they can defer a lot of that payout for unused leave into RSA 1 because it resets the limit January 1st. But if you're deferring money throughout the course of the year into RSA 1, and then say you've been putting $1,000 a month into RSA 1, then you want to retire October 1st, you've already put $9,000 in there throughout the year, so that's going to reduce these figures by $9 grand as far as how much you put in.
If you take a payout, does that count toward your salary for that last year, or just go into your account?
No.
Just in your
The
account?
payout for unused leave does not impact your average final salary or ERS benefit. It's simply a payout for that unused leave.
You guys are planning to change your contribution out,
That's short. I have to get to that, yeah. So these are the deferral limits. No minimums, but there are maximums. Okay. Now, when can you get access to the monies? Okay. Whenever you separate employment. Whenever you separate employment, this money is yours for the taking. You do not have to be a certain age to draw this money out. A lot of deferred compensation plans require that you be 59 and a half, or else pay a penalty if you're not. That is not the case with the 457 plans such as RSA 1. We can get this money whenever we separate employment, whether that's retirement or termination of employment. There may be some extenuating circumstances where we might be eligible to take a distribution while we're still employed, and that would be an example for case unforeseeable emergency. Okay, if you have an unforeseeable emergency, broken down car is not considered unforeseeable emergency. But you know, over the past 3 years, we saw a lot of our members who regrettably had to take a distribution because they lost a loved one to COVID unexpectedly and had to bury that loved one. That's considered an unforeseeable emergency. Catastrophic event, okay? But a broken down car is not considered an unforeseeable emergency. So I'm getting ideas on that, okay? Upcoming wedding or a college tuition bill is not an unforeseeable emergency. Age 70 and a half. If you're still working here at 70 and a half with Decatur Utilities, you are given the ability to begin distributions if you so choose, okay? But generally speaking, you have to separate employment in order to get access, because you can't borrow against this account. This is simply money that you have for retirement. That's the purpose of it. Now, as far as distributions are concerned, you can take them in different forms. You can empty out your entire RSA 1 account in one single payment. That's referred to as a full lump sum payment. You can take partial lump sum payments out. Now that you're retired, maybe you want to go on a cruise. You want to take out $5,000 from your account to pay for the cruise? That's perfectly fine. That's a partial lump sum. Do you realize that with partial lump sum payments and full lump sum payments, it's going to incur a 20% withholding, federal withholding on those lump sum payments. Now, I will say that 20% usually is enough to satisfy your tax liability on these distributions. But if you take a full lump sum payment and that throws you into a tax bracket that you'd never been in before, you may realize that that 20% wasn't enough to satisfy that tax liability. Okay? On the flip side, say if you just took a partial lump sum payment out during the year. You take out a partial, it's going to be subject to 20%, but that 20% may be enough to satisfy the tax liability. And so when you file your taxes the following year, the IRS might be sending you a return because the 20% was more than enough to cover your tax liability. Now, you can take distributions out on a periodic basis. We see a lot of our members who are using their RSA 1 account to supplement their monthly ERS benefit. That's very common now. You can do that if you extend those equal periodic payments over a duration of 10 years or longer. You can choose your withholding rate. It wouldn't have to be that automatic 20%. Maybe find something more appealing, not so drastic as 20%, maybe 10% or something like that. Work with the tax preparer to find the ideal rate to have withheld. But you can also delay distributions. You can delay distributions all the way up until 72. Used to be 70 and a half, now it's 72. So if you've retired from Decatur Utilities, you don't need to touch this money, but the IRS, Uncle Sam's going to make you take a minimum from your account come age 72, because this money has grown all these years tax deferred. It was put in tax deferred. Guess what? The government's going to want to eventually get some tax revenue off of this deferred salary that's grown a lot over the course of your career. So at 72, they make you take a minimum.
Is there a penalty for withdrawing before 60?
No.
Okay, if you do the long withdrawal or payments over a long period of time?
No, there's no penalties with getting access to your monies in your RSA 1 account.
No matter what age?
No matter what age.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what, the reason why myself decided to do it at 22 is because I realized if I retired at 25 years, I'd only be 47. I'm going to need to have something else to, pull me through until I reach Social Security eligibility. So my idea back at that point, before I got this ring on my finger, was that I was going to retire 47 and enjoy the rest of my life. Right? And I had to have some extra money to do so, and I was going to use RSA 1 to tie me over until Social Security eligibility. Then I got this thing put on my finger, and things have changed ever since then. Some for the good, not so good. Okay? It happened. But no, there is no penalty with taking monies out of RSA 1. You can draw it at any age. And that's a unique feature to a 457 plan. Most other plans, like a 401k, will penalize you if you're not 59 and a half when you take a distribution. Okay? So, buying service, we talked about purchasing service under the employee's retirement system. Coming up with the money is the tricky part. But if you have an RSA 1 account, you can use the monies in your RSA 1 account to make the purchase. You heard me right. And guess what, folks? It is no tax obligations, not going to be taxable. Simply using the monies in your RSA 1 account to purchase service under the employee's retirement system. So let me tell you, if you've got some members, we've got some members in here who have some service that they're eligible to buy, whether it's withdrawn service, military service, what have you. If you have an RSA 1 account, you can use that money to make the purchase, and there's no tax obligation. So I encourage those of you who have some withdrawn accounts maybe with us, you don't have the money ready to make that purchase, go ahead and set up an RSA 1 account. Let that money go into the account and let it grow, okay? So that when you have the money there, you can use it to buy that service. So that's an opportunity. We welcome transfers into RSA 1 from other 457 plans, but they have to be 457 plans, okay? That cannot be a transfer in from a 401k. The good thing is that 457 plans are common in government sector. So Decatur Utilities, if you have another 457 plan that's available, you can roll it in. Nationwide, Empower, there are a lot of 457 plans out there. The ideal here is we don't have any fees. A lot of those other plans have fees because they've got their private companies. They've got to make their money somehow, right?
Is there any penalties with that, rolling in another 457?
No penalty at all. Now, I would always encourage that you ask your plan trustee of your other 457 plan if they'll let you transfer out only a certain amount each year. I've seen that happen. Okay? But we will accept that transfer from the 457 plans. Okay. So I've talked to you about a lot already today, but I want to finish off with talking about how easy it is to join the RSA 1 plan. You can join this plan at any time. There's no open enrollment period. And guess what? You can change how much you're putting into your plan at any time as well. So you're not locked into having it, say you put $100 away a paycheck. Well, you don't have to keep it at $100 forever. If you want to drop it, you can decrease. You can increase, you can stop, you can restart your deferrals at any time, so long as you're following your payroll officer's guidance, okay? But you can increase, decrease at any time. And I always encourage our members, when you get a bump in salary, consider, before you get accustomed to getting that extra salary, defer some of it into RSA 1 so that not only are you saving more for retirement, but you're helping to lower your taxable income at the same time, okay? Now, to enroll, ever so conveniently perforated in the very last 4 pages of this book here, dark green handbook, you'll see the last 4 pages are the enrollment forms for RSA 1. Yes, it's by paper. No, it's not online. I get that question all the time. I say that RSA 1 is undergoing a major IT upgrade. That hopefully will involve being able to log in and register your account online, set up your account online. But right now it's by paper. So it's not hard to fill out. The first sheet of paper tells us who you are and where you work. You're a member of the Employees Retirement System, so you would check that box accordingly. The second page tells us who you'd like to designate as your beneficiary for your RSA 1 account. It doesn't have to be the same beneficiary you have on your ERS account, but it can be. Just know that you have to fill out this beneficiary form and put all of your beneficiaries' information, including contact information as well as social, because we need that so we can quickly, expeditiously pay that beneficiary. If you pass away and there's an RSA 1 account, balance remaining, it's going to go to your beneficiary. We're not going to hold on to it. We're going to pay that beneficiary. And the beneficiary, if it's your spouse, has a lot of choices as how she'd like to receive that money. Okay? But it's going to go to your beneficiary. Now, that form needs to be notarized. I'm a notary. Jeffrey's out there is a notary. Okay? We can notarize this for you and take it back to Montgomery. We had a few enrollments yesterday when we were over at Northeast Morgan Water and Sewer. Okay, so we were over there just yesterday. Now, you fill out the back of this form if you want to designate any contingent beneficiaries. Contingent beneficiaries don't get anything unless you and your primary die together, like in a car accident. Then it would go to your contingent. Okay? So you can name contingents if you so choose. The third sheet tells us among those 3 investment funds, how you'd like to see your deferrals invested. Do you want them invested in the fixed income fund, equity fund, short-term investment fund, or a combination of the 3, or maybe of 2? You can split, of course, just make sure it adds up to 100%. The very last sheet of paper tells us, really tells your payroll officer who you are, how much you want to defer. Check the box that says new enrollment, put the new amount, put the amount that you want to have deferred from each paycheck. It comes out of each paycheck. Okay? And then the effective date. We are at the end of 2022. If you're not started with RSA 1 right now, if you're not in it, I'd encourage you to all set a resolution for 2023 to save more for retirement. You can set it up where the effective date will be the first paycheck that you get in January. Make it easy, folks. Start off the new year right. Get that New Year's resolution set away so you can say you're saving more for retirement. Now, anytime you want to change how much you're putting into this plan, you can download this form on our website, or you can probably ask Jenna for it, and she'll give it to you, and you can put the new amount that you want to have deferred from your salary. So if you want to increase or decrease deferrals, you check the appropriate box, and then put the amount down that you'd like to have deferred from your salary, each paycheck. Okay, very simple. And then lastly, when you eventually get an RSA 1 account, hopefully it's not too long, you're probably going to want to keep track of it. Maybe not to the same extent that I like to keep track of mine. I look at mine almost, at least monthly, okay? But we get a quarterly statement that's still placed in the mail to us that we can keep apprised. Easy to read quarterly statement to see how our account's performing. But if you're like me and you want to find out more frequently how your account's performing, you can certainly visit our website and log into your account. By the 10th day of each month, we will have the rates of return for the previous month posted. Well, the rates of return were posted yesterday, and the equity fund had over a 5% return last month. The equity fund in October had over an 8% return. So hopefully things are turning around on the stock end. We'll have yet to see the bond fund had over a 3% return last month in November, or the equity, the fixed income fund, I should say. So just realize that it goes up and down. Make sure that you are paying yourself for the future. Can't stress this enough. I talk to retirees all the time, and I have yet to hear a retiree that's told me he has so much money in retirement he doesn't know what to do with it all. That never happens. It's always, when are we going to get a cost of living adjustment? When are we going to see an increase in our ERS benefit, our pension? Well, like I said, the last cost of living adjustment for ERS, granted by the legislature, and then subsequently approved by the board here, was 2006. It's a long time. Costs have gone up. Make sure you start setting aside some monies now to save for retirement, to add to not only your ERS benefit, but also add to your Social Security benefit when it comes available. So I'm going to finish it up with our contact information here up on the screen, but I'll be happy to answer some questions. I have a question in the back.
Is it possible to roll an old 401k into RSA 1?
Unfortunately, you cannot roll a 401k into RSA 1. It has to be another 457 plan. Only 457 plans are allowed. I've asked about whether that might change in the future, but it does not look promising. So, only 457 plans will be accepted in RSA 1.
Would an IRA be considered 457?
No, an IRA is not considered a 457. Now, keep in mind that if you have an IRA, whether it's if it's a Roth IRA, if it's a traditional IRA, if you wanted to, when you retired, move your RSA 1 account over to that IRA, you could do that if you wanted to. But if it's a Roth IRA, you wouldn't want to do that because that's already post-tax contributions.
Oh, I was trying to set up mine online. What is a PID?
So yes, you're probably trying to set up your account on our website, and you will need that personal ID number, PID. I've got them. So if you need your PID number, bear with me because I know there's a lot of you. But I have it in my handbook or in my computer out in the car. I'll get it for you, okay?
I printed them out as well.
Ah, super. So Jenna helps you too get that PID number. That PID number is 8 digits. You can request it through one of us, but we can't give it to you over the telephone. You can always request that a letter be placed in the mail to you with that PID number. When you're originally setting up your account on our website, if you don't know your PID number, you can click the button that says send me a PID number, and we'll send you that number. It's unique to you. Nobody else shares it. Don't share it with others. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
On the RSA 1, on that deferred, if you know, you said you can do 30,000. The catch-up plan, is that something you're participating in? Is that something you have to be already signed up for prior to retirement age?
The question was about the catch-up provision in RSA 1, that $45,000 figure. All right, so catch-up, there is an application to do catch-up, and it looks a little bit overwhelming, but what catch-up does is it allows you to pull unused deferrals from years in the past, years that you weren't able to defer the maximum, and to apply those unused deferrals to the current year so you can defer even more of your salary, up to $45,000. It is a form you have to fill out because we need to see what you contributed in those previous years to see how much you're eligible to catch up. Okay?
It's not maxed out at the 45,000.
Correct. If you've been maxing out your entire career, you would have nothing to catch up on. But let's be honest, most people have not been deferring the maximum into RSA 1 or any other 457 plan for that matter over the entire course of their career. So you're pulling those unused deferrals from years in the past to apply them now to get you to the 45,000. So we need to have to fill out that application. You will indicate a normal retirement age on that catch-up provision. That normal retirement age is simply an age that you elect. It's not something that requires you retire when you reach it. It's you elected to establish the 1, 2, or 3 years preceding your normal retirement age that you would be participating in the catch-up. The oldest normal retirement age that you can elect is 70 and a half. If you reach 70 and a half, catch-up is not in the cards for you anymore. You don't look 70 and a half.
You can only do that for 3 years.
1, 2, or 3 consecutive years in your career, one time. If you sign up for 1 year of catch-up, because you don't think you'll do it for 2 or 3, and then after that 1 year you think, you know what, I should do it for 2 years, you won't be given that option. So I always tell people, if you're going to sign up for catch-up, go ahead and sign up for all 3 years, because that way it gives you the ability to do it for 3 years. If you only sign up for 1 year, that's it. You only get one shot at catch-up in your entire
Is
career.
it going to spread the amount over 3 years, or is it each year you could do?
Each year up to $45,000 for 3 consecutive years. It's a lot of money, but remember, towards the tail end of our career, we're probably making more money. We probably don't have the financial obligations we once had. Maybe we paid off a lot of our debts. You know, it might be well worth deferring a lot of our salary towards the tail end of our career so that we can really reap some tax savings when we're no longer getting those tax credits and deductions we once had when we were raising kids. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the RSA 1 disbursements, what are they good on?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
When you start drawing, you retire, you start drawing RSA 1 money. I know it's tax deferred, putting it in. The retirement checks are only federal withholdings, if I understand. What are the withholdings on the RSA?
With tax withholdings on distributions from RSA 1. Well, let me just say, for example, ERS, just to point out, you are correct. Your ERS benefit is only subject to federal income tax. It's not subject to state of Alabama tax. But your RSA 1 distributions are subject to both federal and state income tax. We only withhold for federal income tax on your RSA 1 distributions, and we typically withhold 20% in most cases, sometimes less if you choose to spread out your distributions over a 10-year period or longer. But generally it's 20% that we're going to withhold for federal taxes. Now, as far as state taxes go, with RSA 1, those distributions are considered taxable to the state. We just don't withhold any state income tax from your distributions. Now, with that said too, folks, just this year, the legislature, one of your very close nearby representatives, Lynn Greer, after several years of trying to push this through, got a bill passed that results in the first $6,000 of distributions from a deferred compensation plan, such as RSA 1. The first $6,000 distributions beginning next year is not subject to state of Alabama income tax if you are of age 65 or older. So that was a nice perk that the legislature passed this year. So if you're 65 or older, the first $6,000 that you take from a deferred compensation plan will not be subject to state of Alabama income tax. So it could very well be the case, if you're that age, you may not pay any state income tax on your RSA 1 distributions.
That's only if you live in the state, correct?
Correct. You got to be a resident. Well, I don't know, we live close to Tennessee, but they have income tax in Tennessee?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Florida doesn't either. And Mississippi doesn't tax retirement income. So we've got some states nearby that are pretty lucrative places to move. Defined benefit retirements, our ERS benefit is not subject to Alabama state income tax. But if you leave the state and move to Georgia, Georgia's going to tax that. Okay? You just have to pay it. We're not going to withhold for it. There are some other states out there that have income tax like we do, but don't tax defined benefits. Pennsylvania, Hawaii, they don't tax defined benefit retirements. It's a nice place to move to. But only federal income tax on your regular retirement. Federal and state is we just don't withhold for state income tax on RSA 1 distributions. So you'll have to pay at the end of the year. You get your 1099-R from us. You can go ahead and do your taxes. We send that out in January each year. Any other questions? Well, I'll tell you what, y'all, we're going to be here for a while today. So if you want to give us a little break, we can break down here. And then if you're interested in meeting with either Jeffrey or me, have any personal questions, we'll be happy to go over those questions with you and answer them for you. We'll be holding this again at 2 o'clock. And I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Y'all have been a great audience.